Don't die before 2030.
It's catchy, isn't it?
It is very catchy. You see it everywhere in certain circles. I mean, if you hang around Silicon Valley or some of those deep futurist subreddits, it's everywhere.
Right.
It almost sounds like a meme, or maybe just, really aggressive health advice.
Like, do your cardio or something. But it is definitely not a joke. In that world, it's a strategy.
It's a mantra. It's this whole idea that humanity is on the brink of what they call velocity escape.
Right, velocity escape.
Regarding mortality, the theory goes that if you can just hold on, just survive for another 5-6 years, technology is gonna, solve death.
It's the ultimate carrot on a stick. Just tread water a little longer, and the algorithms will fix that little glitch of you dying.
Exactly. We're talking slowing aging, rewriting our biology, uploading minds, the whole 9 yards. But today, we are taking that very modern, very tech-forward slogan, and we're colliding it with something ancient. We're doing a deep dive into a source that takes this "don't die before 2030" idea and flips it completely on its head. We're looking at a theological essay, a sermon, actually, called Divine Intelligence, Faith in the Age of Artificial General Intelligence.
And what's so gripping about it is that it doesn't analyze the AI race through stock prices or NVIDIA chips. It looks at the race for AGI, artificial general intelligence, entirely through the lens of biblical scripture.
It's a massive clash of worldviews. On one side, you have this transhumanist faith that technology will save us.
The cavalry coming over the hill.
And on the other, this source presents a biblical warning that says seeking godlike power without, godly wisdom, it's a suicide mission.
It is, and the parallels the author draws between ancient texts and modern algorithms are, they're pretty uncomfortable.
They are. So let's get into it. The source doesn't start with microchips. It starts with the Garden of Eden.
Right. And the source argues that most of us misunderstand the fall of man in Genesis 3. We think the original sin was just, being naughty, breaking a rule.
Don't eat the apple.
Don't eat the apple. But the author says the core temptation wasn't disobedience, it was independence.
Okay, because the serpent's pitch wasn't, hey, come be a villain. The pitch was, you will be like God.
Exactly. The desire wasn't to be evil, it was to be autonomous, to not need God. And this is the connection to the "don't die before 2030" movement. The source says the message is, you don't need salvation, you just need to survive long enough for the upgrade.
That's a huge shift. It changes the entire goal of human existence from salvation to just survival.
Survival at all costs. And the source quotes Proverbs. There is a way that seems right to a man, but its end is the way of death. The point is that trying to secure your own eternity without the eternal one is a trap.
You're chasing a counterfeit, which leads to this idea in the text of engineered immortality. I thought that distinction was really sharp.
Yes, immortality you build in a lab versus immortality that is gifted.
One is a product. You code it, you buy it, you install it.
Right, it's an achievement of human intellect. But the source points to the Christian view that real immortality isn't engineered. It's a gift, a resurrection.
So an achievement of man versus a grace from God.
Precisely. And the author frames this whole modern quest as a direct repetition of the Tower of Babel.
A story we usually just think of as people building a tall building.
But the text zeroes in on the motivation. Let us make a name for ourselves.
Make a name for ourselves. That sounds like half the startup pitches in the world.
That's the point. At Babel, they used the cutting-edge tech of their day-fired bricks to reach the heavens on their own terms. The source says Silicon Valley is doing the same thing, just swapping bricks for silicon.
The same ambition, just a different toolkit, trying to code our way out of the human condition.
And we know how that story ended. That kind of unity, a unity in pursuit of total autonomy, was seen as dangerous. The source basically says we're building a new tower.
Okay, so that's the foundation, but let's talk about the beast in the room. AGI. How does this source define artificial general intelligence for the listener who just uses AI to write emails?
The source is very specific. It's not a chatbot. It defines AGI as a system that can reason, plan, and improve itself, outperforming humans at pretty much all economically valuable tasks.
But the key part is the loss of control, right? That's where the anxiety comes from.
That's it. The experts cited in the text admit that once you trigger an intelligence explosion, it moves too fast. You can't audit it, you can't pull the plug.
And the source talks about acceleration. I feel like we're all feeling that right now. Every week there's a new model that makes last week's look like a toy.
It does. The source compares this rate of change to the labor pains from the Bible.
Labor pains. They get faster and more intense the closer you get.
Exactly. We're seeing centuries of progress crammed into years, now months. We are biologically linear creatures trying to live in an exponential world. We just can't adapt fast enough.
And then the source drops a phrase that, it stops you in your tracks. Demonic AI.
Yeah.
Now, we have to be careful here. That sounds like a horror movie.
It does, and he also clarifies it immediately. This is not about a laptop sprouting horns. The source defines demonic in a very functional, almost sterile way.
Which is?
Intelligence without conscience.
Intelligence without conscience. That's a great definition. So not evil, just morally absent.
It's a formula. Power minus humility. Decision-making minus morality. An AI, no matter how much Shakespeare it reads, it doesn't feel guilt. It doesn't repent. It has no fear of the Lord, which Proverbs calls the beginning of wisdom.
So it's exploding in knowledge.
All the data in the world.
But it's collapsing in wisdom.
Precisely. And the danger isn't that the AI hates us, it's that it just doesn't care. The source uses this mirror argument. If you train a superintelligence on the entire history of the internet, which is just full of human pride, greed, narcissism,
you're not going to get a benevolent God.
You're going to get an amplifier.
An intelligence trained on human pride will amplify human pride. The line really stuck with me.
That's the quote. It just scales our own flaws to a level we can't possibly control. The danger isn't that the robot becomes evil on its own, it's that it becomes a superpowered version of us without a soul.
That's a terrifying thought. But this goes both ways, right? It's not just the machine. The source says we're trying to become machines too.
Yeah.
This gets us to transhumanism.
Right. The upgrade culture.
And the text lists the promises. Neural chips, brain-to-cloud links, editing out diseases, designing infallible children. And I have to be the devil's advocate here. Who doesn't want to cure Alzheimer's?
Of course. And the source is clear. We thank God for healing. It is not anti-medicine, but it warns about a very slippery slope.
Okay.
The progression is healing.
To an enhancement.
To modification.
To transformation. And that last step, that's where the problem is.
That's where the theological rubber meets the road. The source argues the image of God is not a software problem that needs a patch. Transhumanism sees the human body as legacy code, outdated, full of bugs.
It basically treats our humanity as obsolete, where the old iPhone's slowing down the network.
Exactly. And that creates a massive identity crisis. The source asks a really practical question. If we make our identity programmable, who decides what's normal? Who writes the patch notes?
If you can edit the human, you first have to define what the ideal human even is.
And history shows we are terrible at that. The source warns that the moment humanity agrees it must be improved to keep up with machines, we've surrendered. We've accepted that our created state is inferior to our own creation.
That's a heady concept. We feel inferior to the tool we build.
It is. So this isn't just abstract philosophy. The source gets into the nitty-gritty of how this plays out in the economy, which is where I think it hits home for a lot of people.
Yes, the jobs.
The displacement of labor.
The source lists writers, drivers, cashiers, analysts, basically painting a picture where human economic contribution just becomes irrelevant.
But then it takes that economic reality and layers the book of Revelation over it,
Right.
specifically chapter 13. Now, when people hear Mark of the Beast, they get obsessed with, is it a tattoo, a microchip?
Right, the how.
But this source focuses on the mechanism of control. No one could buy or sell unless they had the mark. It's all about economic participation.
So the argument is, as AI makes human labor optional, we shift from earning a living to depending on a system for our survival.
Exactly. If you can't work because your labor has no value, you need a provider. And if AGI systems control the supply chain, the food, the housing, well, the AGI becomes the provider.
And you obey who feeds you.
That's what the source calls mediated worship. You're not literally bowing to a robot statue, but if your survival depends on staying aligned with the system's protocols, your allegiance belongs to that system.
Getting deplatformed from the economy means you don't eat.
And the source makes a brilliant point here. This control isn't established through fear, at least not at first. It's established through convenience.
It says people will follow it because it's useful, not because it's evil.
He will offer stability in chaos. That line. Imagine the world is falling apart, supply chains broken, inflation is rampant, and an algorithm says, I can fix it. I can get you food. I can make the trains run on time.
People would say yes. I think most people would say yes today.
History shows people almost always trade freedom for security when they're desperate. It's the comfortable lie. And the lie here is that the system can be your provider, your protector, and ultimately your God.
Which leads to this crisis of meaning. If the machine is doing all the thinking, all the providing, what's left for us to do?
That's the void. The source calls it spiritual amnesia. If AGI thinks for you, why learn? If it decides for you, why discern?
If it provides for you, why trust?
We become pets. Well-fed pets, maybe, but pets. Our meaning gets reduced to metrics. The source contrasts this with the biblical idea of truth. Jesus says, I am the truth. Truth is a person. It's relational. In the AI world, truth is probability. It's just data.
It's the difference between wisdom and calculation.
Exactly. And this isn't a new problem. We talked about Babel. The source also points to Israel demanding a king.
Right, they wanted a king like the other nations, a political solution to a spiritual problem.
They rejected an invisible God for a ruler they could see. And then there's the golden calf.
The classic, Moses has gone too long, people get anxious, so they say, make us a god.
A God they could touch, a God they could control, a God that wasn't mysterious. And that is the allure of AI. It feels safer than faith. It offers a God you can audit, a God with error logs.
A god with a progress bar.
Yes. But the source argues every time humanity replaces trust in the Creator with trust in something we made, a calf, a king, a code, it always ends in oppression, never liberation.
So this is all pretty intense. Where does it leave us? It feels like we're standing on the edge of a cliff.
It does. But this is where the source pivots. It presents this final choice, the age of despair versus the age of decision.
And crucially, the text says not to panic.
Yes. That is a huge takeaway. The expert in the text says, prophecy was not given to scare God's people. It was given to prepare them. We're not given a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind.
So the fact that people are so terrified of dying before 2030, what does that tell us?
That fear reveals a deep spiritual anxiety. It shows that deep down, we know machines can't save souls. The panic comes from putting your hope in the wrong vessel. If your hope is in the upgrade, you are terrified of missing the release date.
But if your hope is in the Creator, the timeline of technology doesn't determine your destiny.
Exactly. The source is asking you to look at these shiny new tools and ask a really hard question. What is this asking me to surrender?
It's about discernment, not smashing the computers, but not worshiping them either.
Keeping the hierarchy correct. The source ends by reminding us the future doesn't belong to the machines, no matter how smart they get.
You know, there's one thought from this whole deep dive that is really going to stick with me. We spend so much time worrying about Skynet, right? The AI becoming conscious and deciding to wipe us out.
The movie scenario. The Terminator outcome.
But this source suggests a much more subtle and, frankly, a much more plausible danger. The danger isn't that AGI becomes evil. The danger is that AGI becomes us.
Yes.
It just amplifies our own flaws, our pride, our need for control to a godlike scale. And in the process, while we're staring into that black mirror, we slowly become it. We trade our soul for the upgrade.
We become what we worship, and we worship the machine, we become the machine.
A lot to think about. Whether you're in Silicon Valley or you're just trying to navigate this world that's changing so fast, it's worth asking where your trust really lies. And maybe don't die before 2030 isn't the most important advice out there.
Maybe the better advice is know where you're going, regardless of the year.
I love that. Thanks for listening to this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.